Welcome back to the Warbird Mistress. Today is Sunday the 1st of March, 1942, and this is A Walk Through the War. Beginning in the American Theater of Operations with the 6th Air Force in the Caribbean, over the next month a detachment of P-40 Warhawks and P-39 Airacobras of the 23rd Pursuit Squadron Interceptor, 36th Pursuit Group Interceptor, is sent from Veja Baja on the north coast of Puerto Rico, east to St. Thomas at the United States Virgin Islands. And going across the globe to the Southwest Pacific area with the 5th Air Force, the 22nd Medium Bomb Group's 33rd Bombardment Squadron Medium transfers from Brisbane just inland to Ipswich with B-26s, including the third ever built, pictured here in an image for which I knew I had the person to credit. They prepare for their first mission, which will take place on 6 April. Meanwhile, the last heavy bomber mission is flown from Java, Netherlands East Indies. Air operations shut down across the island, and the B-17 Fortresses and LB-30 and B-24 Liberators of the 5th Air Force's 7th Bombardment Group Heavy disperse. The 9th Heavy Bomb Squadron begins to move from Yogyakarta to India with B-17s and LB-30s. The 11th Heavy Bomb Squadron departs Yogyakarta for Melbourne, and the 14th Heavy Bomb Squadron attached to the 19th Bombardment Group Heavy leaves Singosuddy with their B-17s, B-24s, and LB-30s, also bound for Melbourne. The 27th Light Bomb Group's 91st Light Bomb Squadron moves from Malang to Brisbane with their A-24s, and the 19th Heavy Bomb Group's 93rd Heavy Bomb Squadron departs Singosuddy for Melbourne with B-17s. And that brings us to Monday, the 3rd of March, 1942. In Florida, with the Air Force Combat Command, the 19th Observation Squadron Light is activated at the Miami Municipal Airport and begins flying sub-patrols with L-1s and L-4s. Later this year, the municipal port will be purchased by the Navy for training purposes, as well as the larger adjacent master field. Returning to the 5th Air Force in the Southwest Pacific area, Bataan-based P-40s attack shipping in Subic Bay. The pilots claim considerable damage to Japanese shipping in the harbor, but this is a Pyrrhic victory as they lose 4 of the few P-40s still remaining on Bataan. In the Dutch East Indies, 5 B-17s and 3 LB-30s, with the last aircraft taking off just before midnight, evacuate the last 260 men from Yogyakarta, the last operational airfield on Java in Allied hands. They do so as shells explode around them and Allied troops put up their last desperate defenses against the Japanese ground forces reaching the outskirts of the city, less than 20 miles from the runway. With that, Headquarters 5 Bomber Command not only ceases operating on Java, but also ceases to be an operational unit in any way. And as the clock ticks past that flight, we move on to Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 1942. Where, also with the 5th Air Force, beginning at 0920 hours, just as 9 heavy bombers evacuating personnel and civilians from Java land at Broome, Western Australia, Japanese aircraft attack the airfield and harbour. Leading a flight of 9 A6M2 Zeeks and a single C5M2 Babs out of Kupang on Timor, Lieutenant Zenjiro Miyano's flight strafed their targets for the next hour and destroy at least 22 aircraft. A B-24 Liberator packed with wounded crashes with 20 aboard when shot down 10 miles from the harbor, and a KLM DC-3 loaded with refugees and a load of diamonds worth upwards of 300,000 pounds in contemporary value is shot down 50 miles north of Broome. While PKAFV is recovered, the diamonds never are. 2 U.S. Army Air Force B-17Es and a B-24, a pair of RAF Hudsons, an ML-KNIL Lockheed Lodestar, and others were lost at the airbase. A KLM DC-3 was shot up while landing and finished off by Japanese fighters before she even came to a stop. In Broome's Roebuck Bay, 15 flying boats were lost, each one loaded with Dutch refugees, mostly women and children. 2 short Empire flying boats, 1 Royal Australian Air Force and the other belonging to Qantas, 5 Dutch Dornier Do-24s, and 8 PBY Catalinas operated by Dutch Naval Air Service, RAAF, RAF, and U.S. Navy are all sunk. The stench of burning petrol and avgas offers up a malodorous incense to the dead and dying, including 9 children, one of whom but a year old, and many of whom will never be recorded as they are drowned, burned, or shot down while experiencing what should have been their first taste of freedom from the Japanese onslaught. In response, the Japanese lose a single aircraft. In the American theater of operations, the original plan for Operation Gymnast remains cancelled, although the combined chiefs of staff consider Operation Super Gymnast, a plan which combines the US and British plans for seizing Dakar, Casablanca, and Tunisia. However, this is still an exercise only for the sand tables, as the decision does not affect the 8th Air Force, leaving her unassigned until Operation Torch is finally revealed. And that brings us to Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1942. While the air echelon of the 28th Bombardment Squadron Heavy, 19th Bombardment Group Heavy arrives from Singosari, Java in Melbourne, also with B-17s, B-24s, and LB-30s, the 14th Bombardment Squadron Heavy begins operating with those same models only 3 days after having arrived from the Dutch East Indies. Deeper into the Pacific and closer to America's shores, with the 7th Air Force in the Pacific Ocean area, we see Operation K executed against American assets in Hawaii. The longest two-element bombing mission in history and one of the longest missions flown without fighter escort. This results in 2 Kawanishi H8K Emilys dropping their bombs on Hawaii. A reconnaissance mission and feasibility study, the mission is designed to scout out any damage and repairs being done at Pearl Harbour, while also testing the Emily's potential to strike California, Texas, or other inland targets. Only 2 aircraft are available at the time, and a change in the Navy's meteorologic code meant a gap in information about weather over the target further hampered the mission. And finally, the I-23, the submarine supposed to station herself on lifeguard duty outside of Oahu, has been incommunicado for 20 days, and may be presumed sunk or damaged. Despite these setbacks, the aircraft were loaded with 4 550-pound bombs each, and took off from Voyager Atoll in the Marshalls for the French frigate Shoals, 1,900 miles away at the halfway between Midway and the Hawaiian Islands in the Hawaiian archipelago. It is there that they are refueled before setting off to Pearl to bomb the 1010 dock and reconnoiter the area. American radar picks up the pair on their approach and recognizes it as Japanese aircraft. P-40 Warhawks and PBY Catalinas are dispatched to intercept, but they cannot see through the overcast skies to spot the Emilys flying at 15,000 feet. The 2 Japanese come over Oahu at 0200 hours using the Keana Point Light for navigation, but are unable to spot blacked-out Honolulu or Pearl Harbor. 1 aircraft's bombs fall near Roosevelt High School, leaving craters and shattered windows, but no other damage. The other aircraft's bombs are likely dropped in the sea before the pair return directly to the Marshall Islands. They bypass the frigate Shoals base as it is deemed too primitive to address structural damage one of the Emilys had sustained during takeoff, and thus concludes the longest-range bombing mission in history, albeit one of limited value. Regardless, the Army Air Forces on Hawaii, together with Naval, Marine, Coast Guard, and Army assets, do see the raid as a sign that Hawaii is not yet out of enemy reach. And finally, that brings us to Thursday, the 5th of March, 1942. At Drew Field in Tampa, Florida, the headquarters of 12 Interceptor Command is activated as part of the 3rd Air Force. Going around the world to China, Burma, India, Theater of Operations with the 10th Air Force. Having arrived in India from the Netherlands East Indies on the 25th of February, Major General Lewis Brereton formally takes command of the 10th Air Force, which at this time has moved from Ohio and boasts a total of 8 tactical aircraft. That is to say, the entire 10th Air Force is made up of 8 B-17s. Further to the south, with the 5th Air Force, the air echelon of the 30th Bombardment Squadron Heavy, 19th Bombardment Group Heavy arrives at Melbourne from Singosari, Java, with B-17s, B-24s, and LB-30s, as the last of the evacuation efforts continue. And on a final note, returning to the East Coast and the 1st Air Force, the Civil Air Patrol begins flying anti-submarine patrols off the East Coast, as they put their elbows in to assist the fight against patrolling U-boats still enjoying their second happy time. And that was Sunday the 1st of March 1942 through Thursday the 5th of March 1942. And that also brings us back up to date, so I do hope to keep up with the videos from here on out. As you can hear, I'm still just a little congested, but I'm getting it out there. Between work and everything, I know it's hectic, but I'm glad to see everybody's hanging on to every word. So, with that, I bid you adieu, and I will see you next time. And until then, this is Claire, and I am the Warbird Mistress. Take care.